Hey everyone, I'm Armand. Welcome back to part 6 of Fingerstyle Fundamentals. Today, we're going to be talking more about sequencing to play more efficiently with both our fretting and plucking hand. In part 2 of Fingerstyle Fundamentals, we focused more on sequencing with our plucking hand, but today we're going to be holding some chord shapes and going between them. To start off with, we're going to grab a C chord. Now, we haven't talked about chords on this channel, and there's a lot I'm going to get to eventually, but to get you started, if you're not familiar with this already, we're going to grab the 3rd fret on our A string. This note is C. Grab it with your 3rd finger here, and then we're going to use our 1st finger to grab the 1st fret on the B string. This note is also C. So these are going to be 2 of the notes we're playing, and the 3rd note we're going to throw in here is just our open G string. Our plucking hand position is going to have P on the A string, I on the G string, and M on the B string. Now, if you're familiar with the C chord already, you might notice that we are missing a finger here. Most of the time, the C chord is played like this, at least the one that people learn in the beginning. However, with this exercise, we're only going to be playing on strings A, G, and B. We're not playing on the D string where the 2nd finger normally holds, so it's inefficient for us to hold that note down. Oftentimes in music, we want to be efficient with our playing so that we can use that extra energy to think more about our interpretation, the picture we want to paint for the audience, other musical things. At some point, you're going to have to learn all the different fingerings and combinations for your chords, so this is just one of them. From here, we're going to pluck with P, then I, M, and just like in part 2, we're going to sequence with our P landing on the A string right after we pluck with M. We'll pluck again, plant I, pluck with I, plant M, and then after this, pluck with M and plant with P. We're going to be doing that twice for each chord. So twice on this C chord. And now we're going to be going to the 2nd chord. This chord is going to be a version of the G chord. Again, we're taking out all of the unnecessary notes for this progression. So to go to this chord, we're going to start by placing our 2nd finger on the A string, where our 3rd finger was, so we can lift that finger now. We'll pluck here with P. We're now going to pluck the open G string with I. And now we're going to place our 4th finger down on the 3rd fret of the B string. This note is D. And we'll pluck it with M. Don't forget to plant P afterwards. And then we do that again on this G chord. And then we're going back. Now, the big thing with sequencing in both of our hands here is we don't need to move our fingers all at once to get to this C chord. This is a big misconception with guitar in the beginning. Whether you're playing fingerstyle or plucking, it's kind of unrealistic to expect our fingers to just immediately snap into the position we want them to be, and it's not always the best choice musically. Remember, our guitar is like a choir. We have voices singing here. If I immediately snap into that C chord, I'm cutting off certain notes early, and it doesn't sound good. There's like a disconnect there. When going back into the C chord from our G, we're going to place our 3rd finger down first. We'll pluck this with P. We have the open G string with I. And now finally, I can lift the 4th finger and place the 1st finger back on that B string, and we're back in our C shape. We're going to do the same thing again. We'll do our PIM, going to the G string, just 1 finger at a time. And that's the main exercise. This was one of the biggest things that I focused on when I first started playing fingerstyle in the beginning. They're based off of an old composer and guitar teacher named Mauro Giuliani. He wrote a series of 120 right-hand studies. These were crucial in my development, and I just figure I should mention them in case you are up for the challenge of reading music and reading through all 120. Now, you don't really need to memorize all of them. I think they're helpful to read through at some point, but the exercise I showed you today is a variation of one of those early ones that I really focused on a lot, and it gave me a lot of fingerstyle gains in the beginning for both plucking and fretting hands. Now, putting this into a practical use, say you're playing more of a modern song. You're playing something like Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley. That song, we have a bunch of different chord shapes in there. Again, we haven't gotten to all these chords yet on my channel. This is kind of assuming you already have a little bit of knowledge here. So if you're a complete beginner, then you can ignore this part, but I want to give an example for people who have a little bit of chops already. This song goes primarily between G, E minor, C, and D, for the most part. There's some variation in there, but when we're taking this progression and we want to apply our efficiency, our sequencing into this, when we hold this G chord, first thing we're going to look for is notes that we don't need. We don't need to hold the G like this. We don't even need to hold it like this. We have a nice 2-finger G available for us here. We only need that 3rd fret on the low E and 3rd fret on the high E to play that first chord sequence. There's our chord. Going into the E minor. Normally, when you learn the open E minor shape, it looks like this. But we're not playing our A or D strings at all through this sequence. We can actually just play this completely open. And that's E minor. Going into the C, once again, we can use the chord shape that we used for today's lesson. We can place our 3rd finger down here. Try and remember your sequencing as well too. We don't need to slam all of these shapes down all at once. And especially as you go into the D chord here, this D starts on an open string, which is nice. It gives us a break, gives us a chance to move our fingers into place as we go through the chord, and then we go back to the G. That was just one example that came to mind because I've had multiple students requesting that one recently. This song is normally played on the 5th fret with a capo. This might actually make it a bit easier to practice some of your sequencing. So if you want to do today's exercise with a capo higher on the neck, that's a good place to start while you're still getting comfortable with the lower area of the neck here, or the lower pitch side of the neck. And that's it for today. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Consider liking and subscribing, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll catch you next time. Bye.